welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. I'm your host, Luke Velasca, of course, joined by my co-host, Kyle Taylor. It's a fantastic episode today. We've got a lot of great things to discuss, including self-driving vehicles, the crypto boom, and a whole lot more, including a little bit later on in our episode with a special guest, Jim Nicholson, the VP of Operations from LoadSmart. Jim will be coming on a little bit later, so stay tuned. But before we get to that, Kyle, how you doing today?
I feel like it's a whole new world. People are vaccinated.
Yeah.
People are going out and about. It's warm. It's spring. Freight's kind of slowing down just a little bit.
Yeah.
People aren't just like dying in the streets. The blood's not out in the gutters right now.
It's more so we've learned to maybe manage the chaos a little bit better.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. So it's definitely interesting because people are slowing down. We got a lot of, and it's spring break.
Spring break too.
Yeah,
what did you do for spring break in college?
Yeah, college. I didn't go to college.
Oh, okay.
But school of hard knocks.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I think I just worked all through spring break in college.
Yes. But as an adult, did just get back from Tulum. Went to Mexico 2 weeks ago.
That's true.
So.
And Brad Ganane, also on the VP of the Sonar team, he was in Cancun just last week.
It's just the place
I think
to be.
is it my turn to go?
Probably not. Not gonna make it. But,
Not gonna make it. Okay.
But no, it's been a great time. So what do we talk? So pizza? Is that what you said?
Pizza. Yeah. Okay, we're jumping ahead here, okay? Give me a minute. Let me pretend that I'm a lot smarter. Let them think I'm smarter than I actually am, okay?
Right.
So, so it's a headline. So we've been covering it. I mean, a lot of people have been covering it, but, you can, obviously on FreightWaves, we covered it too. And so Domino's Pizza, they're piloting in Texas, driverless delivery with Neuron autonomous cars, and it's specifically in Houston. And I think this is really interesting. We hear about the drone delivery thing. We hear about flying cars, it's like the future of tech and all that stuff. But there it is on the screen. So Neuro is going to be the partner there, and that's a self-driving vehicle. And I think, honestly, this is a great bridge until drones are ready to start delivering, if and when we ever get to that point. This car, it pulls out front. It lets you know you come and grab your pizza.
That is dangerous.
And what's dangerous about it?
As if I didn't have a pizza curse already. I'm eating pizza at least once a week.
Do you think somebody, and I'm not saying I would do this, definitely not, but they would order their pizza. It's kind of like the vending machine. You kind of reach your hand in the cart, see if you can
put in a fake bill, pull it right back out.
Yeah.
Not that
we'll
I've
have
ever
to
done
figure out how all that happens. But yeah, you try to reach your hand up the vending machine. I would totally be doing that with
100%. Next thing you know,
I wouldn't, because that would be wrong and you'd be stealing somebody's pizza. And that's a big part of it. Don't steal somebody's warm pizza.
Yeah. But next thing you know, we're gonna have autonomous freight. Now you got your pizza. Now let's get a couple pallets of some.
That's right.
Maybe some frozen pizza delivered to your warehouse. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays. I've always been on the aspect of the line haul aspect of just okay, what could be autonomous first, which is like what I thought. Well, DC to DC, maybe going across the longer interstates that don't have that much turning or capability of running into people. But
there's a handful of autonomous trucking companies that are already doing that right now. They obviously still have the driver in the cab, and they do a lot of the exit to exit, right? So kind of, the driver handles getting off the exit and getting on the highway, obviously, and all the DC and parking stuff. But I think as that stuff becomes more mainstream, we'll start to see, a lot more trucks, and the driver just kind of, gets ready to maybe handle all the parking, and all that stuff. We'll see. Time will tell, obviously. And one other thing, totally unrelated to freight, well, not completely unrelated, but mostly unrelated, is the crypto boom. For those crypto enthusiasts out there, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever else you're in, Dogecoins for some of you, looking at you, Timothy Dooner. But
I have some as well.
Absolutely. And Coinbase, the largest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange, I believe the second largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, only behind Binance, they went public today. So their IPO debut, and they IPO'd at one point today during trading. I was looking, they had just touched over $100 billion valuations. Jesus. And so almost as much as Kyle makes in a year. And they've dipped down a little bit since then.
You are not
wrong. Again, big news for the cryptocurrency space there.
No, this is massive. I mean, if I'm a broker, I am talking to every single one of my shippers and asking them to pay me in Bitcoin.
100%.
Please. Like
Please
the
and
Elon
thank you.
Musk. Any large brokerages, like if I was like the CEO or like the finance guy, I would be putting that out on Twitter, like, hey, happy to accept Bitcoin as currency, and we'll be sure to keep that on the books.
Leave us a comment down below if you have some relation with your employer. Are they willing to pay you part of your salary or bonus or commission or what have you in cryptocurrency of your choosing? Let us know. I'd love to learn more about that.
Right, it's at market value, so obviously just pay me at market value, and we'll just keep that on file. And
you assume all the risk, right? You could lose money there. Again, it's only a loss if you sell, not financial advice, of course, but you could also gain a lot as well. It's kind of like being paid in like, let's say, an index fund like the S&P 500, right? You know it forces you to invest over time. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. We've got some good stuff in Sonar coming up, and we've got again in just a moment, Jim Nicholson. Stay tuned. The VP of Operations from LoadSmart is going to be joining us, talking some really cool things, about how to handle the volatility and how to communicate that and how to leverage those changes. Before we get to that, let's talk about the chart of the week here.
Where are we at in this wild west of a freight market? We were just talking about a little bit of just like this kind of status quo from 2 weeks ago, coming off of Q1. We felt like, at least we even saw it in our own data, but even coming from the viewers here. Comment below, are you feeling a little bit more softness? Is it easier to find a truck? That's kind of what we've been hearing from a lot of the people that we work with on the Sonar side. And so, but would love to hear from you all. And so this chart actually speaks some significant words here. And so what we're going to be looking at is the inbound ocean TEUs, which is a proprietary data set. Which is the blue line, which is a proprietary data set to us. So this is looking at the bookings. So what's being placed on the vessels at countries of origin. So these aren't things that are even close to be hitting our shores here in the United States. So it has a 14 to 21 day lead time here before it really hits customs. And then what's that orange line, Luke?
The orange line is in this case, the dry van volume for truckload shipments. So dry van volume levels in the United States.
Yes.
Again, we don't need to worry about the exact numbers right now. That stuff's not important. When we're comparing TEUs to truckload volume, obviously what we're really looking at is the directional correlation there. And you can see that blue line, which is the TEU import volume, as that goes up, that really fuels the dry van market in the United States from a demand perspective. And obviously, we saw that really big peak there in October, or right at the beginning of October, end of September. We cooled off a little bit, and I'd use the word cool almost ironically because it's still significantly higher than where it was like a year ago. But relative to where it was at that peak there in the ends of September, early October. But then we've started to go back on the rise again. Here, now that we're entering Q2, or we're in Q2, and that white line you see there all the way on the right might be a little bit difficult to see. We'll zoom in just a little bit there for you. As you can see, that white line is the forecast. So it looks like it's expected to go up even further. And again, that would fuel that orange line or the drive-in volume, right?
Yeah, and just remember though, for those looking at this chart, trying to find those correlations, that orange line is technically behind. It's a lagging indicator to what that blue line is. So what we're looking at the blue line is what's preparing to just be shipped our way. So seeing that that blue spike is coming up is really indicative of there's more volumes coming our way, and there's going to be more truckload volumes. Now, not every container goes directly into truckload. A lot of it does go onto rail. But when we're talking about supplying or getting inventory levels back up to where they should be or where we need them to be to set up for summer and getting into retail season towards the end of the year, that's a necessity. And that's going to, when we're talking about DC to DC transfers, that's all truckload, man. And we're talking about parts that go into making products that then finally get sent via truckload. I mean, about 80% of anything that comes in a container eventually hits a truckload. Now, it doesn't go directly from port to truckload, but everything really affects that.
No, you're absolutely spot on. There's a ton of that volume that fuels the dry van space, and really, I mean, as Zach Strickland said it here at FreightWaves, right? One of the really smart gurus here at FreightWaves does a ton of the analyzing of the data. He broke it down, and he's expecting that this summer is going to be one of the hottest freight markets that we've ever had.
Put your
especially the
sunscreen
driving
on.
side. Put your sunscreen on, baby. I mean, as this import volume continues to go up, that's only going to fuel. I mean, that freight has to move over the road, right? It can't just sit at the ports forever. But anyways, we've got a special guest here coming up.
Oh, I'm super pumped for this.
Come on.
Here we go.
So Jim Nicholson, the VP of Operations at LoadSmart, also a current Sonar subscriber. Jim, are you on the line here? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, I have to say before we get into this, the wonderful FreightWaves production crew. So conveniently, my internet cut out about 10 minutes before going on here. So the things that most of us don't see that happen behind the scenes, the FreightWaves crew scrambling with me to get this going. But I think we're good to go here now. So love the show. Thanks for having me on, guys.
That's awesome. Glad to have you here. What did they? They didn't send you all the way back to dial-up, did they?
It was we were going that direction, but now I got my iPhone and my iPhone propped up, so you make do, right? So
Hey, don't worry. My guy over here, Luke, has done that a numerous amount of times, and you would have thought that he would have a nice setup at home. But trust me, it's not the first time, won't be the last.
yeah,
We
the
don't-
glamour, the load smart background, I had everything going, just but you got to roll with the punches. So looking forward though.
That's awesome. No, I mean you've got the great beams inside the home. The wood beams going across the ceiling. A little bit of the chandelier action there. It's great. Your setup got the eloquent set up very eloquently. Well, Jim, I think what would be great. Just get for folks watching who aren't familiar with you or your company. Maybe they aren't. Give us a 30-second background on yourself and LoadSmart.
Absolutely. So Jim Nicholson, pleased to be here. I'm the Vice President of Operations for LoadSmart. Who is LoadSmart? We are a digital freight company, and really our focus is bringing technology to both shippers and carriers to optimize really logistics execution across multi-modes.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So, Jim, there's been a lot of changes, obviously, in the market. Before we talk about where those changes may be going in the future, right? As we look to the summer, as we look towards the rest of Q2 and Q3, tell us a little bit about how you guys at LoadSmart have pivoted during this volatile time. Let's rewind the clock just over a year ago. What were you guys doing? How did you manage a lot of the changes that happened?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a great question for all of us in this logistics space, but specifically on the digital side. I do chuckle because I go back to last June, and we remember you had that first wave, which was what we call the essentials surge, right, in March, and then we dropped off dramatically in April, and June saw this rise in both the rates and tender rejects, and it was unsustainable, right? I mean, you had layoffs, there's a dire outlook. This isn't going to continue, and I just remember working with my pricing team, our ops leads, and just saying, "Hey guys, I think this will stabilize in July and August into the summer months, and then let's fast forward right to 9 months later, and we're still near all-time highs, right? That have even increased through Q1." But from LoadSmart, this has been a great opportunity for our business, right? And the capacity challenges have been real, and so any way that shippers can find opportunities to find capacity, and that's our bread and butter, right? Is integrating into systems, connecting. So it's been a really great opportunity for us to accelerate our business and create that visibility that they're looking for. So really, throughout the volatility, um, what's the most important is, we've invested a ton in really our pricing strategy. And if you guys think about this, our business is different. We don't have a floor of hundreds of sales reps that are actively negotiating and haggling with shippers. 85% of our business is programmatic, and it's through integrations with customers. So the how important pricing is in our business for everyone, but in our business, is paramount, right? So navigating the volatility forced, and we feel like we have an edge here because we've been researching this for years now, and 40% of our team is data scientists, and partnerships of bringing data into our ecosystem has been really important. But the days of relying on rate data that's lagging is it's just behind us, right? It has to be data that we're bringing in a certain way, and finding ways to use that data effectively. And we feel like we've built some good partnerships with folks, Sonar certainly being one of them, to really build our product to go to market and really provide value for shippers.
That's great, Jim. You said something here, and I don't know if you meant to say it or not, but what I heard was there's there was a lot of good information in there, and one of the things that I heard was you were using like obviously you have a 40% of your team is data scientists, right? And then you also mentioned that there's rate data that lags obviously, and that can be difficult to make changes in times of volatility. And then you also you don't do a lot of negotiating with your customers. You look at tender rejections a lot. How would you say that you have an edge over, say, a traditional brokerage, because it sounds like you're not relying on those extreme changes from negotiating purposes? And what I mean by that is when times of volatility happen, I think brokers, myself included, I used to be one, tend to get very emotional with their pricing. It's kind of like when you
Sure.
see big swings, especially swings that you're not used to, you kind of start to want to make knee-jerk reactions.
Paper hands.
Paper hands,
Yep.
as they call it, I guess, in the crypto space, right? Have diamond hands. How do you make changes? I guess, how do you make communication or communicate to your customers in a way that is trying to be reflective of the market and not necessarily emotion driven when it comes to pricing? Is that a challenge you guys have had to overcome?
No, to be honest with you, I think that's where, from a digital side of things, taking even a step back, think about, I hear a lot of times people say automation, we're 100% automated. I don't know what that means, right? I mean, you have to break this down into the different elements of a transaction from, what we call as quote and book, which is instant pricing, and then tender and load creation, and then sourcing capacity, tracking, and then settlement, right? There's all these different elements that, if you throw out broad, conceptual ideas of just percent automation, no, but as you're able to automate, and as that's really our focus as a business, is automating as much and digitizing all of these different factors, that now think about your account managers, and it's people are in this business, it's important, but it's the role they play, right? And so I think automation almost tends to lean towards like cost, right, and cost reduction, but there's a huge value add. We feel empowered because we have the opportunity to automate a lot of these processes, that essentially gives our customer success account management team the opportunity to actually be consultative with customers. We hear that all the time, but does it actually happen? Or are we spending a lot of our time getting a quote request, manually quoting it, trying to find the rate, looking at all these recent tools to try to figure out what the best one is, maybe talk to our ops team? No, we don't need to do that, right? So, and then that pivot allows us to use, I think we talk about data and how do you communicate to customers. It's, on the data side, we're using data to price and programmatically do these things, but that allows us to do different things. And data insights on the shipper community continues to be an opportunity. This is something I've been in this business for a long time, probably too long, but it's always baffled me how even senior level folks in this industry, whether it's on the trucking, logistics, shipper side, they're starving for information, right? And now we have this. Fast forward to where we're at now, which there's a ton of data out there, right? And but we think about data in terms of how do you absorb the data, how do you actually articulate it, how do you understand it, and how do you take action, right? So we want our team that's really cultivated the relationships and create value for the shippers, to use the data in that way versus spend all of their time trying to do these tasks that just don't need to be manual tasks. So we feel we're positioned better than anyone to actually create value for the customer using data.
Awesome. And so how have you seen your operations team kind of relay that message, let's say a year ago to today? How is from an operational standpoint, how have you developed that message and made it actionable for your team?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? And I think you need to have right the sources of data, and not just data, but industry knowledge that has to be just a part of your DNA as an organization, right? We are in the logistics space. We're a tech company, but we have to be very grounded in what's going on in this business on a day-to-day basis, and what are the factors that are driving this business. And again, I'm going to lean towards this partnership. We have strategic partnerships, and that's enabled us to grow the business. And that goes to the vendor side, right? The vendor side, and Sonar and FreightWaves has been a great partner of ours. But that's ingrained, right? I mean, we are talking about tender volumes, tender rejects. We're talking about I go even on the supply side, right? I'm trying to understand what's going on in supply and outlook, FCFH, TCFH in terms of truck count, fleet counts of for hire fleets. That helps us a ton. People understand these things in our business. Our team does, right? This isn't just the strategy, the planning, the executive team that kind of understands these concepts. We're talking about this constantly. We're sharing data. We're training the team to really understand how to use the data to have a conversation, and it has to be proactive, right? I think this business, this industry, has been so reactive for so long that there is tools and data now that you can truly predict, anticipate movements, what's going to come, right? And I hear you guys talk about Strickland and outlooks for Q2. Absolutely, there's going to be a lot of volatility, right? But we know that because look at trends in terms of annual year-over-year trends in terms of rejections, volumes. We know that road checks coming up in early May, right? That's going to create volatility. These are things we can predict, but it's just been such a reactive industry, and really, I think the industry's been challenged in terms of not just the data, but how do you use the data, right? I continue to see a disconnect in terms of how people try to use this data.
That's a really good point, Jim. I think for a long time, there hasn't been a ton of data available for everybody, right? You have a couple of the really, really large carriers out there, or maybe some of the really large brokerages, and they've had some good data into their own networks, obviously, but there hasn't really been a single source of truth, if you will, for a long time. And depending on what part of the market you're trying to see, there may never be a single source of truth. But I think there's a lot more resources today than there was even just 2, 3, 4 years ago, that allow people to see a bigger picture of the market. And to your point, that gives us kind of like, hey, what do you do with that information? I didn't used to have this. Now I don't know how to use it, but I know it's cool.
Well, it comes down to culture. I mean, you were talking about that spot on. If this is how we're now onboarding new employees, if this is how we're able to portray, hey, here's why capacity. You could be as green can be, never even seen a truck before. Well, you had to have seen a truck, but never moved a truck before in your life, and now you're coming into this logistics business, as most people do. I mean, when you and me came in, I never had logistics experience when I started brokering freight. I was just told, hey, here's a dial a truck login, let's get after it, throw $200 on it. And it was like, aye, Captain, like, let's get after it. And I felt like I was kind of forward thinking as well at the time. And to be honest, I wasn't. And so is that how you're also looking at onboarding, and that's how you're, just ingraining it in every employee you now have?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And so our stance is, we absorb data through APIs, through integrations. Our data science team and machine learning really understands how that data moves, and impacts pricing. We leverage that with actual carry direct pricing now, which we're seeing some really interesting momentum, not just in this whole arbitrage game of really trying to fine tune your pricing and play this, the brokerage spot, but truly transparency, right? That you can leverage now. Really interesting data visibility from the capacity side that has been slower to evolve, but that's moving really quickly as we see a lot more carriers transitioning from on-prem to cloud-based that we can connect into and get a lot more visibility to it. So we absorb that data definitely programmatically. That gives us, I think, a lot of control in terms of manipulating and using more decisions from our data scientist team versus someone on the floor that just started 2 weeks ago, right? So it's a hybrid of using it, from in a fashion that's using integrations, but also just again ingrained in the culture, the company culture, to really be able to use data insights combining right the sonar data, the market data with customer specific data
Yeah.
of dwell time and facility issues that they're having. It's or in its infancy in the industry, and that's something we're pushing heavy because shippers crave it.
Yep.
They haven't been able to get it. The data's out there, but it's all these different places. So it's our obligation, I think, as logistics providers and tech providers, to be able to piece this together and really help them figure out how to make their business better.
That's awesome. And so we got just a couple minutes left here, but
Sure.
really wanted to just leave it on this note. We saw last year convert to what we saw last year, meaning more people are needing more information, more data, more kind of reasoning behind the decisions that we're making. How do you see, at least from your own team, you guys change to 2022 this time? What are you trying to get better at? What do you think will be the kind of the needle mover for LoadSmart?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the capacity side, right? So it's creating value. It's penetrating deeper, creating value for shippers, and pushing into different areas and service offerings. We see a big gap in multimodal, right? That from a digitization's perspective, right? You think about LTL, partial truckload, volume truckload, rail. Flatbed. Flatbed is incredibly underserved from a technology perspective, and it's a massive market that has massive demand, right? Flatbed, tender rejections in the last 6 weeks have gone from 13 to 26, right? Crazy demand. But there's a huge gap in the marketplace in terms of actually connecting capacity to shippers, right? We've done this now and seen wild success with it. So it's baffling to see the different corners of the market that really are underserved from a technology perspective. And then on the carrier side, right? Again, we're seeing really interesting movement that has been a bit sluggish. But really connecting into that, the planning software, because look at 10 years from now, 15 years, our carrier is going to be calling on loads, doing the stuff they're doing. It's just not going to happen, right? So the movement is happening now, and we're really excited about what's going to happen in the next few years in terms of really connecting more effectively. So we're excited. We got some nice funding last year, and we're deploying that capital in both areas to really bring it all together.
That's awesome, Jim. Jim, absolutely fantastic to have you here. We're pretty much at the end of time. I guess one last thing here, if folks want to get in touch with you to learn more, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me via LinkedIn or Twitter, right? And on the social channels, not quite Instagram quite yet, but reach out to me. Would love to chat. And listen, guys, love the show. Thanks so much for having me on. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime.
Fantastic. Glad to have you, Jim. Have a great day.
You too.
Awesome. What a stud.
I mean, so let's just recap what the heck just happened, Kyle. Like, holy crap. We just got hit with like this LoadSmart is such a forward-thinking company,
They really are.
and they're 40% of their team is data staffing.
I know.
I mean, I've never heard that from a brokerage perspective.
Never.
And so, for those of you guys watching, it may be a little bit, I don't even have one data guy.
Right.
Like, and so just so you guys know, they are on that spectrum of just give me the data, we'll take care of it.
Right.
But just know that Sonar, it's why we have the user interface. That's why we have the charts that we're looking at,
Right.
and so that companies that don't have maybe that tech staffing to back them up, we still have so many different ways that you can ingest this information just from your computer so that you can make better decisions.
And something that comes down to, and that he said that they're doing, and I understand this is very difficult for folks in the industry to grasp because it's a complete pivot. Is people are really, really good at building relationships.
Right.
Let them build relationships. That's what they're good at, right? Computers are good at algorithms. Computers are good at predicting things. Computers are good at repetitive tasks. Let them handle that. They take emotion out of it. Also, real quick, got my new modern shipper vest on here.
Check it out.
It's absolutely fantastic.
FreightWaves
You can go to
brand.
FreightWaves.com to see the modern shipper. But with that, we are out of time. So it's been an absolute fantastic episode. We will see you next Wednesday live at 3:30.